Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Growing Leader podcast, where we're sharing ideas to help you build relationships with clarity and creativity. Now, this isn't just a relationship with yourself, but it's also relationships with those around you. In this episode, we have a guest, Nick Powell. Nick is an executive coach and he'll be sharing some high performance tips that we can apply and really think about if we want to be high performers. And this perhaps is more of an episode on how you can lead yourself, i.e. your relationship with yourself to be a high performer. But equally, you can also think about these ideas as to explore if you are raising kids, if you're raising teams, and you're really trying to create a high performing team. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Growing Leader podcast with me, Kemi Taylor. Today's episode will be looking at high performance coaching. Our guest today is Nick Powell, and we'll be exploring what coaching is, what high performance is all about, and how you can make them both part of your leadership culture so that you can get the best out of yourself and around those around you at home, work, and in your wider community. So Nick, warm welcome and glad to have you with us. So for those who don't know you and all the awesome stuff that you do, who is Nick Powell?
Thank you, Kemi. Thank you for having me. So yeah, who is Nick Powell? What a question, eh? So I guess where I'll start was I probably spent my first 20 years of my career running business transformation programs for large corporates. And as part of my work, I was always asked to sort of coach and informally mentor people. But I didn't really know what I was doing. So there would be some bright young thing that was really smart, but didn't have the experience. And I would just basically help them out. So I really loved that part of my work. And so around about 4 years ago, I decided to become a proper coach and thought, well, what if I can actually learn what it is to coach somebody properly and learn all the tools, techniques, skills. So about 4 years ago, I trained to be a peak performance coach with the Human Potential Institute. They were called the Bulletproof Coaching. And as part of that training, not only did I learn how you hold a coaching conversation and how you coach an individual, but also they taught us between 40 and 50 topics around what it takes to become a high performance human being, not only covering work, but sort of covering all areas of your life. So now what I do is I work one-on-one with executives and entrepreneurs to help them put themselves in the best possible place mentally, emotionally, physically, so that they get the balance they're striving for in their life, and therefore they can perform at their best, not only in work, but also at home as well.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. And I think also you have a book as well that's out.
How did I forget?
I know, right?
Yeah, so I've got published Limitless, published this book 12 months ago now. Became an Amazon #1 bestseller, so I'm really proud of this book. So if your audience want to check it out and grab a copy, you can get it on Amazon as a paperback and also on Kindle. I've also got a podcast called Upgraded Executive, which I co-host with my friend Ben Palmer, and we're interviewing people who are in their niches at the very top of their game, and it's all around how can you perform better, not only in your personal life, but also your professional life.
Nice. And I believe you also have an article in Glamour magazine, so...
Yeah, I've had several articles published by Glamour. I'm not quite sure. They keep on coming back to me saying, "Oh, you couldn't write me an article on this." So I think I've published 3 or 4 in Glamour now. Been published in a few newspapers that are circulated around central London as well. And I think the book really helped. You know, I think once people find out you're a published author, I think in many people's eyes you become a lot more credible. So they're asking you for quotes and writing articles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Thank you. So if we're going to delve into actually what coaching is, because I think a lot of people do think they know what coaching is, and I think coaching and mentoring are actually quite different. What would be your definition of what a coach is versus a mentor?
Yeah, I think people get really confused between sort of coaching, mentoring, and consulting. And I guess the way that I like to differentiate between them is consulting is very directive. You go in and you basically tell people what they should be doing. For me, mentoring is very much around supporting people. You have the knowledge, you have the experience, you put an arm around somebody and you sort of help them on their journey. For me, coaching is very much led by the person you're coaching. So they are somebody that is very resourceful. They've got many of the answers themselves, but they're stuck. And by coaching them through a coaching conversation, you can get them to really intrinsically buy into what they're trying to do. So a lot of the time, it's sort of understanding the why behind the why. And then I think when people connect with why they want to do something and what they have to do and the accountability that goes around that, it becomes quite a powerful motivator. And I think, in all honesty, Kemi, I do a dance between coaching and mentoring. I don't, I think strictly from a coaching point of view, you need to know when to coach and when to mentor. And I think I do that well. I think from the purest point of view, the person you're coaching is meant to have all of the answers, but I have a ton of resources too. So I always have to ask permission from the person I'm coaching if they want to hear some of the ideas that I have. I mean, it sounds like there's a subtle difference between mentoring and coaching, but it's actually quite a big one, because I think with mentoring, it can be sometimes you're telling the individual too much, or based on my experience, I would do this. And if they buy into it, great. But a lot of the time they don't, because they don't quite get it, or it isn't their own idea. So having a balance between mentoring and coaching, I think, is really important.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Because I think when I first had my first coaching experience a few years back, I didn't actually know the difference. And I remember sitting in the session, going in with, this is what we're going to discuss, and being asked a whole bunch of questions. And I thought, actually, maybe they don't know what the answer is. So next week, I'll give them all of my questions up front so they can come up with the answers. But actually, like you said, I think it is literally asking your coachee a lot of questions so that they can mind them and find the answers.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think sometimes just having the space to slow down, have a conversation with somebody, get somebody to ask you questions from a non-judgmental place, gives you what they call these aha moments to go, oh yeah, yeah, that's what, you sort of say something to yourself, think, oh, that's it. That's what I have to do, or that's what's been holding me back. And I think that's the really powerful part of it. The accountability is really important too. So if people wish for me to be their accountability partner, I will hold them to account on the actions that they want to take. And I think from a coaching point of view, I learn more from my clients when they don't do what they commit to doing, because in a session we can look at why. Okay, so what's got in the way? What's been holding you back? What are the obstacles? And then how do we then start to remove those obstacles?
Yeah, no, I love that. So if you had to, I guess, name a couple of skills that like a really good coach should have, what would be like the top skills that make a really good coach?
I think for me, one of them has to be active listening. So listening to an individual and being able to not only listen, but also take it in and repeat back to them what you've heard. I think sometimes we almost want to hear what we hear. And I think sometimes even the coachee, they can say the wrong thing, or like the meaning slightly different. So I think having, active listening, which is really intently listening to the individual and then repeating back, I think is really powerful. And I think probably the most powerful skill is to coach somebody from a place of presence and intuition. So when I'm coaching an individual, I am not thinking of the next question I'm going to ask, say, Kemi, right? I haven't got like a book of my magic questions where I go, oh, okay, question number one. You basically coach from a place of presence. So depending on where the coachee's at, you just allow the conversation to flow. And you ask them, insightful, deep, probing questions from that place of presence. Otherwise, it can become quite forced, and it feels as though the coach is just asking question after question after question. Whereas what you need to do is dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper. And I think the only way you can really do that is by really being in the moment with the individual and letting the questions bubble up.
Nice. And I guess in the reverse, I don't even know if there is an answer for that. What makes a good coachee?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing for me is for the coachee to be open and honest. Yeah. I'm not going to judge the individual regardless of their background, regardless of what they have or haven't done. I'm there to help facilitate an outcome. Okay. So I think for me, it's being open and honest. The other thing is to lean into the process. So that if you're in, you're all in. Don't. And when I say all in, I mean people are going to be doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they are not doing things they committed to be doing. That's okay. And what I mean by leaning in, I mean let's come to session and discuss it. Because it's clearly that you weren't intrinsically bought into what you wanted to actually do, or there's something that's got in the way. So I think for me, the two things are lean in and just be really open and honest during the coaching conversation.
Yeah, no, I love that. Because if I'm honest, I think one of the challenges I've found, like I said, when I had that first coaching experience, was if you've never been in a space where you're presented with what you don't know, and you aren't in a formal environment where it's normal to confront what you don't know, coming into a space where someone is presenting to you what you don't know can feel a bit uncomfortable. But I think, like you said, actually being willing to be open to confront that, and I guess maybe not judge it yourself, is what kind of makes you a good participant in that process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then we all judge ourselves. I could be better. I could be doing better. I'm not doing enough. So we have this tendency to try and beat ourselves up. I think for me though, from a coaching point of view, I think people being open and honest, I think sometimes can take a bit of time. Okay, because they may have met me as part of the discovery session. We may have had 1 or 2 sessions before they're comfortable sharing things they wouldn't normally share. I mean, I've had people share some really personal things that they've not shared to anybody else in their lives. I've had people who have been crying in coaching sessions, and that's not only ladies, that's men too, because in the act of opening up about something that's holding them back, they have this realization, and sometimes they can get swamped with emotion. The thing that I probably should have mentioned earlier also was coaching is very different from therapy. Yeah, I'm not trained and I'm not allowed to give therapy. So for me, coaching is very much about looking forwards. Okay, and whilst we might recognize what's gone on in the past in order to move forward, if a client was going to bring up lots of issues around their childhood, or maybe an abusive relationship in the past, those are the kinds of areas that I would acknowledge but encourage the individual to work with a therapist, so that the baggage from the past isn't holding them back. And then once they've done that inner work regarding their past, then we're in a position then to move forward.
Nice, nice. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I guess if we sort of looked at what coaching is, what is high performance? Because I know that for some people it's a buzzword. For some other people, they can kind of guess what it means. But yeah, what would you say is high performance?
I think for me, it's about how can you perform at your very best in all areas of your life. Like, how can you go to work and be, you know, a really great leader, okay, or a really great manager, and be super productive, have lots of energy, be empathetic, get stuff done, and just be a rock star at work, and then come home and leave work behind and be with your family and not be worrying about work. You're in a state of presence, you know, you're loving life, your health's really good, your energy levels are really high, and everything feels as though it's easier. Yeah. And sometimes people get confused around performance because they say, well, it can't be at peak performance all day, every day, because you'll just burn out. And my argument is you can be at peak performance all day, every day, because knowing that you need to rest and relax and recharge is part of peak performance. It's not about going 100 miles an hour from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, because that's going to do you no good in the long run. So there is this element of balance that comes with it too. So it's not all about being on full throttle constantly. It's about knowing when to be on full throttle and when to take your foot off the gas.
Interesting, interesting. So actually it's not that you're constantly trying to exert yourself at your maximum every day, but actually knowing when you need to slow down. So actually, go ahead.
I was going to say, I love the saying, sometimes you've got to slow down to go faster.
Yeah. So I think you've obviously mentioned rest. Are there some other key things around what makes a really good high performance individual?
Crikey, where do I even start, Kemi? I think
maybe like top 3 or top 5 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, right? Because when Ben and I first came together to do the podcast, what we mapped out was the 10 issues that executives, entrepreneurs typically have. And there were 3 that we identified at the outset that we felt were the most important. So the 3 key ones are all around energy levels. So lots of people now, I think, they get to the end of the working week or they get to the end of the working day and their energy levels are not quite where they were 5 or 10 years ago. You know, it's like getting these like mid-afternoon slumps, or get to the end of the week and they're starting to get really, really tired. So I think whatever you can do to boost your energy levels at a cellular level, and if you want me to explain more on that, I can do it in a second, will really basically take energy levels to a level you never even thought was possible. Because we all walk around feeling, oh, I feel pretty good, but that's your normal. And until somebody shows you what good really feels like, then you know you're not really in a position to know, okay, if my energy levels are this high, you know, I can do so much more work, or you know, spend time with your family without being shattered. Then the other one is sleep. I think more people now are suffering with sleep than they ever have before. I think, you know, lots of people are either they can't fall asleep, they're waking up early. So really focusing on your sleep is vitally important, and not just the quantity, but also the quality. So really focusing on the key metrics within your sleep, which allow you to know whether you've had a good night's sleep or not. And then the third one is stress, because I think now, like, stress is the biggest killer out there. Stress is pervasive. We're living such busy lives. We've got so much distraction. people are craving balance, and I think for people, stress is becoming like a major issue. So anything you can do to try and reduce your stress levels is going to be something that's going to make you perform a lot better. Because whenever you see somebody in the office either getting really grumpy, or maybe your partner at home is getting really angry, or somebody is disengaging with something, it's normally because they're in a really stressed state. They've activated their freeze, fight, or flight response. So basically, yeah, so to summarize, energy, stress, and sleep, for me, so like the three key things. If you can nail those three key things, then you're in a position then where you can build upon it. And a lot of the other stuff I write about in the book, and we talk about on the podcast, some of the foundations are within stress, sleep, and energy, but a lot of them to sort of building on top of that. And I almost feel as though if you don't nail your stress, sleep, and energy, everything else you're doing, you're sort of building on top of a pack of cards. If one of those things is knocked out, it all sort of comes crashing down. So you can take, you can take supplements and smart drugs, and you can have lots of devices, and you can be measuring, from a quantified self point of view, how you're performing. Actually, if you don't get those three basics nailed, then the rest will be a lot harder.
Yes, so SSE, stress, sleep, and energy, right?
Energy.
Yeah. So if we delve a little bit, because I think sleep was quite clear. Stress, to some degree, I guess it's quite clear because a lot of people do know a lot about stress. But energy, can we delve a little bit more into actually how do you actually maintain energy? Is that just being like super like I can like hold a ton of bricks even at 10 p.m. like what exactly should it feel like if you are full of energy all the time?
So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because people will go, well, I don't want lots of energy at 10 o'clock at night, because I want to be able to go to sleep. And I think I think being highly energized doesn't mean like you're a Duracell bunny jumping up and down constantly and you're highly excited. For me, it means at a cellular level, your body's got all of the building blocks it needs to produce energy as and when you want it to. Okay. So in each cell in our body, we have something called mitochondria. And not in every cell, I don't think they exist in red blood cells, but pretty much every single cell has something called mitochondria. And in most of your cells, there's between 1,000 and 2,000 mitochondria in every single cell, which is just mind-blowingly small. And that equates to something like 74 quadrillion mitochondria are in our bodies. And what they do is they produce energy. So they produce 85% of all the body's energy. So anything you can do to protect the mitochondria and power them up gives you that energy at a cellular level, which basically then means that you've got this, I guess, more of a quiet, calm, on-demand energy source that you can call upon whenever you want. And I think that's what typically takes people from feeling, I feel pretty good, to feeling incredible. So you have to protect the mitochondria from things that will basically knock it off course, and then do everything you can then from a fuel point of view to really power it up.
Nice. So are there like, I don't know, again, top 3 things that people tend to do to protect the mitochondria?
Yeah, so in terms of protecting, they're very sensitive to environmental toxins. So anything you can do from a reducing the toxin load on your body point of view will help protect the mitochondria. They actually cause damage to themselves in the wrong circumstances. So, making sure you've got enough antioxidants in your diet will help you protect against oxidative stress on the mitochondria. Things like avoiding sugar, right? You think, well, sugar is going to give you energy, therefore it'll feed the mitochondria. Yeah, it will, but short chain fatty acids provide 4 times the amount of energy than glucose does. So by having a diet that has more fat will mean that you feel a lot more energized, and you've got 10 times more mitochondria in your brain and your heart and your ovaries than anywhere else, if you have ovaries, that is. So what you do is when you really get to a point where your mitochondria is firing on all cylinders, you feel it cognitively. You feel in your brain, you feel super, super sharp. And there are supplements you can take that help boost the mitochondria. There's something called coenzyme Q10 and PQQ. But I'd say if you really focus on aspects of your diet, and if you dial those aspects in and start excluding some foods that are maybe more toxic than others, you'll just start feeling amazing. And then your sleep gets better. And we've all found times, right, where we've been stressed. We don't seem to get as stressed if your energy levels are high. So I think if somebody had to say to me what's the one most important thing, it would definitely be energy levels.
Nice. So I love all of this, because I guess in a practical sense, you know, you go to work, you're full of energy and you're performing at your best. And then, like you said, you come back home and you do the same. I guess if we now look at high performance coaching as a topic, for me, I guess what I'm taking away from what you're saying is that you can be someone who's present and who asks really good questions, as an active listener at home and at work. And actually, you're actually intentional about what you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're preserving your energy, how you're managing your stress at home and at work. So are you finding that you're practically applying this at home? And is this something that you actually encourage like some of your clients to do as well?
I think it's massively important to not think of this as it just being a work thing, okay? And the reason I say that is that when I was coaching people early on in my career, people would come to me and say, Nick, I do not want to talk about my stress levels or how well I'm sleeping or how much energy I've got or my diet. I just want you to help me solve some difficult issues with my business or with my career. I said, okay, fine. Because, you know, I'm client-led, if that's what the client wants. I mean, now I wouldn't work with people who wanted that, but back then I didn't really know much different. But it's really interesting, Kemi, because within 5 minutes, they're talking about, oh yeah, but I'm really stressed and I'm really, really tired towards the end of the day. And, you know, it's very difficult to separate the person from work. And what happens in work spills over to family life. You know, if you put your key in through the door and work's still bubbling around in the back of your head and you have to get the laptop out and your son or daughter says, Daddy, will you play with me for 10 minutes? No, I'm too busy. I think that then starts to cause friction in the household, which then adds to more stress. Then you're carrying that stress into work the next day. It becomes a very vicious circle. And I think that, you know, take something now like us being locked down with COVID-19, you know, there's never, you know, work and home life is now like merged. Yeah. So trying to separate the two is difficult. I'm working with an entrepreneur at the moment, and he's basically, you know, the one reason that he wanted to work with me was because he was like, Nick, I'm smashing it in work. Yes, I could be doing better. Business is doing great. We're growing like crazy. But I get to 5 o'clock on a Friday and I'm done. And then I spend the whole weekend recharging to go again the following week. And he's like, I'm not being present for my kids and my wife. And he said, why wouldn't I want to be a very successful business person, but also be the best possible dad that I can be? So we worked together for 6 months. Within 3 months, probably 2 or 3 months, he was literally weekends, he's waking up in the morning, he had bags of energy, he was able to play with his children, didn't feel guilty. So I think there are, I think we can all do better in loads of different areas of life, right? I'm on a journey, you're on a journey, that client's on their journey. But I really think that journey now, you just can't separate your work, your personal life, and your own health. And I think those are sort of three things that I talk about with people. You've got what you do in your career, you've got what you do with your family and loved ones. And when I say family, I'm including friends there, yeah. And then you've also then got your own personal health. And I'm really big on that. If you can put yourself first and put yourself in the best place mentally, emotionally, physically, then you're in the best place then look after your career and your family.
Nice, nice. So if there's someone actually hearing this and thinking, actually, this sounds amazing, I want to sign up for this, where do they actually start? Like, what's the best way to get stuck into high performance coaching, trying to find a high performance coach? Like, are there things that you should be looking for to align yourself to the right coach for you, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's important to find somebody that you connect with. Okay, so I would recommend to people always ask for some kind of discovery session with the coach. So I run a discovery session for around 90 minutes where I get to tell a client about the coaching program, because I run 6-month programs rather than sort of sessional based coaching. So I take them on a journey. But I always make sure that that first meeting is free. So find a coach that will give you the meeting free at first or massively discounted, so that you can understand what they've got to offer. You can understand their style. Yeah. I think that is massively important in finding a coach. There's something else to consider too, is that, you can go on a course for a weekend and call yourself a coach. Okay. It took me, with training and qualifications, took me 15 months to qualify as a coach with the Human Potential Institute. And then it probably then took another 9 months to get my ICF certification. So I'm an International Federation Coach Associate Member. It's very difficult to really, I think lots of coaches out there, there are lots of good coaches out there that don't have accreditation, okay? And there's probably lots of bad coaches out there that have accreditation. So for me, it felt like it was important to get the accreditation because I wanted to stand out from the crowd, okay? So you can go to the International Coaching Federation website and they'll have a directory of coaches there. If you're looking for somebody that operates in my space, where it's not just about the coaching, it's about how you perform exceptionally well as an individual, then there's a directory of coaches on the Human Potential Institute website. I think it's probably humanpotentialinstitute.com. And there would be lots of people like me that have been through the same certification, but in your country, okay? One of the things I'd say also is that when I first started coaching people, I was amazed how easy it was to coach people over Zoom. You still get to see their body language, you still get to see the interaction. Yes, it's not as good as in real life, but it's not far off. So I've got a client in Argentina, I've had a client in Colombia, I've got a client in Vietnam, a client in Sydney. So you can truly serve people globally. So if you want to find somebody closer to you, then by all means, have that sort of more personal human interaction, which might be quite difficult at the moment. But also you can find a coach that's not in your geography or not close to where you live or work, and then you can have those sessions via Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. No, that sounds good. And I mean, I'm gonna delve a little bit further. So you touched on how there are potentially bad coaches out there. What do you think how would someone know that actually this is a really bad coach? Are you just looking at your performance, or are there some key indicators that you actually know that this isn't working for you?
I think if a coach is telling you what to do all the time, then you aren't being coached.
Okay.
I think for me, also, if you're stuck and the coach has resources they can help you with, but won't share them, that's obviously quite a bad sign. I think there is a purist view in the coaching world that the client has all the answers, and as a coach, you should never share the answers with the client. I don't necessarily agree with that. That's why when I was taught to coach, we ask permission to share resources so that you just don't dump things on the client. I think somebody, if they like talking about themselves, rather than asking deep, insightful questions, then that's quite a good indicator of they're not that great a coach. If they're talking more than you, okay, the coach shouldn't be talking. It should be the person that's being coached, the coachee, that's doing most of the talking. I'm just there to ask the questions that sometimes make you feel uncomfortable or make you go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. So those are some, I guess, some of the more classic signs around, somebody that you may not want to work with. But also, I think also there's like a chemistry aspect too, right? So you might just not connect with that person. I mean, I always say to people, like, trust your gut, get in touch with your intuition. And your intuition will tell you whether this is somebody that you want to work with. Is this somebody that has got your best interests at heart and somebody that is going to take you on a journey? And if you feel uncomfortable or there is an element of doubt, then I'd say they're not the right coach.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I do think it's important to know, because like you said, there are so many coaches and there are so many people with certifications. But I think when you do find someone that works with you, like you said, what you unlock is phenomenal. So I guess we're going to end soon. Are there like any final thoughts on like how people can get in touch with you, or just generally around what we've been talking about? That you think we might not have covered that would have been good to have highlighted?
Something just sprung into my mind around looking for a coach. When you're looking for a coach, make sure you always ask them a question. Do you have a coach? So I always like saying a coach isn't a coach unless they've got a coach. So if I'm expecting, say, you, Kemi, to invest in yourself and have some coaching from me because I believe it's incredibly powerful, why am I then not got my own coach? Because we're all on a journey, right? None of us have ever ended. So I think that's a really good way to try and sort of weed out, from who's a good coach and who's maybe a not so good coach. Because if they're a great coach, they will definitely have a coach, and probably more than one coach too.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I know. So some of the people that I've worked with they've had a coach that helps them with their business. They've got a coach like me who's helping them with their own personal performance. They've also had a wealth coach, and they may have had like a personal fitness trainer, which is probably not so much coaching, it's probably more, I guess, more mentoring. But so they surround themselves with people that they know have information, knowledge, resources that gets them to where they want to go faster. I think one of the things with coaching is, I think it's incredibly powerful. It's going to get you to where you want to get to faster, and a lot faster. So think of it as it's an investment in you as an individual, as part of your own personal development. And I think the interesting thing is that, like, when people start coaching with me, they always say, I've started my journey, and it's a journey now that will never end, and you almost can't go backwards because you know what great feels like now. So I think those are probably some of the things that I probably missed out in our chat. But in terms of getting hold of me, So my website is strongerself.global. There you can find testimonials, find details of my coaching program. You can, of course, pick up a copy of the book Limitless, and the podcast is on all podcast platforms called Upgraded Executive, and it's also on YouTube as well, and Upgraded Executive. And we've got a website called, guess what? upgradedexecutive.com. Very original.
Brilliant. No, you know, it's memorable, so so that's a good thing. Awesome. No, honestly, like I've taken away so much, because I think like we shared at the beginning, this was really just a discussion about how we can incorporate coaching and high performance into our leadership culture so that we can get the best out of ourselves and those around us at home, work, and in our wider community. And yeah, I feel like we've really shared some good takeaways, especially for people who've never actually delved into that area or thought about it. And I love the fact that you've even talked about how people have multiple coaches, because that's something I've never really thought too much about. And it makes sense, like if you get people challenging you in those areas and stretching you, then yeah, like you said, you will go faster, albeit probably a bit more stripped and you'll feel a bit more naked, but it's well worth it.
It does make you take some very big decisions that you may not have taken. If I reflect back to one, I was chairman for a mental health charity, and I was consulting full time, plus trying to build the coaching business. And even with all my tools, tips, techniques, things were starting to creak. And then when I had a session with my coach, I just knew that I had to let the charity go, and get somebody else to come in as the new chairperson, because it wasn't serving me any longer. I wasn't giving it the time that I wanted to give it because of all the other competing demands. And that was a really hard decision to make. And I think something that I'd been agonizing over for months. But in that coaching session, the penny dropped. I had that aha moment. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Went home that evening, wrote the resignation letter, sat on it for 24 hours just in case, and then sent it. So it can have I love the way you describe it as, leaves you a bit bare and uncomfortable. It does, but you almost need to go through that sometimes to make those really hard decisions.
Yeah. No, that's true. But we never think about that part of the process. You just want to just get there.
Yeah. And I think lots of people, but particularly when I was coaching in my early days, I'd get clients saying, right, give me the answers. What next? And it's particularly prevalent into the type A, highly driven individuals. Let's not have this chat. Just tell me what I need to do. Yeah. But I think the problem then is that they'll do it for 2 weeks or 2 months, and they stop doing it. And they're like, I don't know why I stopped. Well, the reason you stopped was you weren't really bought into it because you wanted me to give you the answers. So, as a young, inexperienced coach, you sort of fall into these kind of things. But as you get more experience, like, no, we have to go at a pace that means you're making progress, but I'm not going to give you like everything I know in 2 sessions, because one, you're not going to take it all in, and secondly, you're not really bought into the process.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. Oh, Nick, this has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you. So if you'd like to get a hold of Nick, find out a little bit more, go to strongerself.global, and I'll put details in the links below. But yeah, thank you once again, Nick.
Thank you, Kemi. Thanks for having me.
The rest of the day. No, it's our pleasure.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
As I always say, keep learning, keep growing. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.